Hey Nine, welcome to your romantic poetry assessment. This is lesson 13 on poetry. Today you're actually going to be doing the assessment and you might not finish it in today's lesson, that's absolutely fine. I shall give you an extension or you can work it over into tomorrow's lesson as well. I suppose really what I'm saying is as long as this is finished by the end of the week, that'll be fine. So if you do finish it before Friday, I'll be posting kind of bonus tasks, optional ones that you can work on if you haven't finished this. Then don't worry about those optional tasks. And if you have finished this, then the optional tasks are there for you to do. The objective today is first of all to identify what the mark scheme wants. So it's really important for you to know how you're going to get marked and what's going to pick up points. So I'm going to talk you through that before you start. And then the main part of the lesson is you actually writing your answer at least 3 paragraphs long that compare the 2 poems. Okay, and like I said, it might take more than one lesson. If it does, don't worry, you can roll this one over. Here's the mark scheme. So the mark scheme has got 4 clear elements to it. The first one is that you need to have that in your answer that there needs to be a clear set of comparisons featuring similarities and or differences between the poems. Okay? Now it says and or. That means you can do both, you can do one, or you can do the other. Some paragraphs might be about similarities, some paragraphs might be about differences. You might even combine the two. You don't get marks for one, you don't get more marks for the other, you don't get more marks for both. It's about having the right one at the right time. So that's what I'm looking for as a kind of the most essential element. Spotting things and talking about the 2 poems and what makes them similar and what makes them different. The second bullet point is you have to have a focus on form and structure. That means the type of poem that you're looking at, it means the rhyme patterns, it means the line length, it means the meter, it could mean how the poem has a title, it could be about the first line of the poem, it could be about the last line of the poem. Those are the things that go into form and structure. So those are the things that kind of pick up the points for number 2. Number 3 is a focus on the poet's language. So that's where you're going to be noticing things like interesting words, interesting kind of ideas, kind of strange or unexpected kind of words or vocabulary. You get the idea. And both of those, you need to make sure that you're talking about the effect on the reader and the effect on the reader. So not just saying, oh, this poem's got a rhyme pattern, and then you leave it there. You say this poem's got a rhyme pattern and the effect that it has. Okay, so add on that extra bit about what it shows, what it means. And the 4th bullet point is about relevant terminology. Okay, that's about you showing that you can use the right words, the right terms to describe and label the things that you're writing about. So if you're going for a kind of a comment on rhyme scheme, if you're writing up the rhyme scheme in one of the poems, then don't put the word comma into your answer because commas, punctuation, nothing to do with rhyme scheme. So make sure that you use the right terminology at the right times. Okay. Terminology as well on this particular topic is here. These are the ones that we've been looking at. So these are for the form and structure ones: sonnet, line, octet, sestet, meter, syllable, rhyme. Those would all be structural ones. And then in terms of language, similes, hyperbole, alliteration, metaphor, personification, onomatopoeia, oxymoron, and elision. The sentences could also be in there as well. But on this list we haven't included are things like punctuation. That's a structural feature. So you might notice there's question marks or exclamation marks or commas or colons, and they might have a particular effect. And the other thing that's not in here for the language is things like noun, adjective, verb, adverb, and the other parts of speech. So don't forget the basics, punctuation and parts of speech, because they can pick up marks too. It's not just the list we've been working on. So here's the question. Compare how William Blake and William Wordsworth show their feelings about London. What your answer should include. In your answer you should have paragraphs that compare the poems. Focus on the feelings that the poets have about London. Terminology whenever possible. Use of language. The use of structure and form. So from the comparison we comparison grid we did last week. These are the ideas that you might feel that you're ready to write about. There's a list there. And this is the type of paragraph structure that I would be looking for. Now, you don't have to copy this exactly, you can kind of make up your own one, but this would do you a pretty decent job of things. So, as you can see, in the yellow, there's a very clear topic. Both poets have strong feelings about London. Then I zoom in on Blake. I go for him first. I say Blake feels, and then I leave a gap for his feelings. For the city. He states in his poem. I put a quote in there. This means that. I'll explain what it means. And the use of terminology. I'd use the term, makes the reader, and there's the effect on the reader. On the other hand, I've used here a comparison phrase. I'll move on to Wordsworth. And I've got a gap there for his feelings about London. He states, and there's the quote that I would use, which means, and there's my explanation, and the use of terminology, whatever that term might be, makes the reader, and there's the effect out on the reader. It's clear they both feel passionate about London, but in different ways. So that structure is how you compare these two poems. Okay, you have an opening sentence and a closing sentence that has the same focus, and then you have paragraph, and within the paragraph you have sentences or sections focusing on Blake, and then an explanation of something about Blake, followed by an explanation about something to do with Wordsworth. Here's another one. This one is on the titles. So both poets have used titles that have a relationship with the rest of the poem. Blake, there we are. Gone to Blake first again. You don't have to go to Blake first, you can go to whichever one you want to first. Uses something, which is something, type of terminology, you have to use the right word. The title suggests, and then you explain what the title suggests. Wordsworth uses as a title. This title includes a, and you put the terminology in there, whatever is relevant. This means, and you explore the meaning. And it's clear that both poets have used titles that have a meaning, which is linked to their poems. And again, you can change this if you need to change it. You can add extra bits, but that's the kind of the basic minimum of what these paragraphs should be like. And what I'm looking for in your answer is at least 3 paragraphs. So, in terms of the topics, you've got a whole range to choose from here. Okay, what I'm looking for is a paragraph about 3 of those. You can choose the 3; they're all equal, but obviously you need to make sure you get language and structure in different paragraphs. Okay, so don't just go for all the structure or all the language. Try and get a mixture. Here are the poems. There's the question. If you want to pause the video here, you can do, and you can just go over things and just reread them again to make sure you completely remember what they're about. And at the end of the lesson, these are the checklists that you should go through to make sure that your piece of writing has got everything it needs in it. Okay, has it got 3 or more paragraphs? Have you written about both poems in every paragraph? Have you explained how the poets feel about London? Have you used terminology in your work? Have you written about language and its effect? Have you written about structure and its effect? If you've done all those 6 things, then your answer is complete, and you should hand your work in to me via Google Classroom. So now, guys, I suggest you go back to the question page with the poems on. Use your comparison grid from the lesson. Go through this video again as much as you want. Okay, you can hand this in by the end of the week. That's the kind of deadline. As long as I've got this by the end of the week, I won't mind. I'll be setting you other things as well this week, but if you haven't finished this, then this is the priority. Okay, send me emails or comments through Google Classroom, and good luck.